class. We are embarking on our final chapter in the Module 5, Managing for Quality and Competitiveness. This time we're working on Chapter 8, Managing Service and Manufacturing Operations. We'll begin as we have in the past. Our learning objectives include defining operations management and differentiating between operations and manufacturing. We're going to explain how operations management differ in manufacturing and service firms. We're going to describe the elements involved in planning and designing an operations system. We're going to specify some techniques managers use to manage the logistics of transferring inputs into finished products. And finally, we will assess the importance of quality in operations management. The nature of operations management is going to begin really with the definition, and we'll always begin with the definition. It's the development and administration of activities involved in transforming resources into goods and services. So, that was a good definition. Actually, it's very, very comprehensive. But what does operation management mean to you? Of your workplace, currently or in the past, would you consider the definition appropriate? I want you to really think about this course in different ways. I don't want you to see it just as business, but a pathway to transition yourself from where you are in your workplace and where you would like to be. But also, so let's look at these topics in a different way, not just learning what they mean, but how do they apply to what we're doing. And if you're not currently in business right now or employed right now, what about your past experiences? Operation management is a big deal, and again, it really is about overseeing how the flow of the activities. It's really going to be how everything flows into something. We want to physically provide something, for the most part. Sometimes production not necessarily means that something physical is going to go out the door. It might be a service that we're trying to orchestrate, and it is a very delicate balance of inputs and hoping that our resources are sufficient to give us some really good output. Now, operations management is not going to be focused on manufacturing, but manufacturing is a big deal because manufacturing has these processes. They have something that they're going to physically deliver to somebody. Now, manufacturing can deliver to a wholesaler, or can deliver to a retailer, or can deliver to a consumer, but nevertheless, it's building something. It's making something that you can see and possibly use. A car is one thing. We can think of so many different tangible products that are manufactured. Clothing, for example, toys that we give our kids, telephones, many examples of tangible products that we're actually going to manufacture and put together and ultimately come up with something really beautiful and useful for someone who would be willing to pay for it. But the process, we have to go through that process. We're going to have to get some activities together. We're going to have a formal activities that we're going to make something. And that production process is going to be involved in the manufacturing of something. And cars are a part of that. They may have an assembly line process. I think Ford developed the assembly line process where one person does one thing over and over and over again. And McDonald's in many ways, if you were to go through and listen to or watch their movies, how they talk about their organization and why it's so successful, one of the things that they use is they have a very, very sophisticated process. And that's important. They need to have a process, and their process is unique to that organization and is highly efficient. The operations is going to be dealing with both tangibles and intangible assets and products, but the main thing is it's going to be in the operational aspect more so than in the manufacturing. It's more of how do we do, and it's going to be, I think, probably day-to-day type of things. But let's think about these three different areas of operations management, and let's see how we can apply our business knowledge that we've gained so far. As you know, we're going to start with our inputs. What is our inputs? It's going to be really the things that we can convert to output. It's going to be our workforce, the employees, mostly people who are directly involved in producing something. But it also can include materials and energy and, of course, money. But the output is going to be something that actually is going to be, we're going to get money for it, and it could very well be something tangible like a good or services. And services, again, is like lawyers and accountants and maybe physicians. We don't really produce anything physical. What we do is we serve our clients with our particular expertise in law or in medicine to bring healing or to bring some sort of positive outcome for our customers. But operation managers control the process by taking measurements and comparing against established standards. What does that mean? I mean, we want to make sure we understand. They also take corrective actions for any deviation. So operation managers are involved in what is going on, and so we're gonna also figure out if we're doing it right. So that's going to be our feedback, and we're going to look at our standard. What is our established standard, and does it conform to that? They are definitely involved in the day-to-day. They're definitely involved in the nitty-gritty, but they should be able to step back and look at the organization as a whole and measure those types of feedback measurements to see if overall we're meeting our objectives. Now, this one example talks about 3D printing, and this is coming from dental braces to astronaut seats. And it's one of those articles I think you could look at and glean some information that will help you with the chapter. And what it is a manufacturing. It's popular because it helps people understand how to manufacture in a more efficient and more inexpensively. And again, when we're talking about how we deal with services and how we deal with producing a product, we always want to consider being efficient with our resources, because we know that they're limited. That we are a limited amount of money, they're a limited amount of materials, and a definitely a limited amount of workforce. So with those limitations, we have always been striving, every organization, whether a service provider or a manufacturer or producer, we're always trying to find ways to do this, to do the right thing, to do what we're challenged to do by our customers, and give them what they need. But we're always trying to find ways to do it more efficiently. So, service providers and manufacturers have some differences, and it's important because we're moving. I wouldn't say drastically, but over the few years, I guess 20 to 30 years, maybe 40 years, the manufacturing environment has not been as prominent as the service environment. We're seeing an increase in service providers all over the world, but particularly in our nation, simply because there's that shifting. Now, we do have manufacturing in our nation, and we do provide exports for other countries, but it has been a shift in how much is being provided. That means if we're gonna go into business and we're not really sure which industry or which sector we want to go into, it is important to know the differences between the two. Obviously, the nature and consumption of output is going to be something different. The uniformity of outputs. Obviously, services is going to be customized. When you go to a medical doctor, you're not going to have the same type of service that I would get if I would go to the same medical doctor. Generally speaking, and this is, again, generally speaking, the services are going to be much more customized to each customer. Whereas in a manufacturing, you're going to see standardization, if not in every aspect, in majority of the work that's being done at that level. The output is going to be very, very different. So there's no uniformity. I mean, everything is going to be done differently when you're talking about in the service, because if you go to a lawyer, he may not prepare a contract for you. He may be helping you with a litigation issue, or he may be dealing with a contract dispute. I mean, all of the work that's being done by an attorney has a general emphasis. It's going to be about legal, but how it's carried out is going to be very different depending on the client that is in need of service. Services are much more labor intensive when you're dealing with a service versus a manufacturer. Not to say that manufacturers don't have a lot of labor intensive work. It very much depends. But since we're talking about people doing work and manufacturing being much more mechanic and dealing with operational machinery, etc., the labor aspect of it is going to be a little bit more diminished in a case of manufacturers, which in a service industry is absolutely vital. And how can you, can you imagine going to McDonald's and trying to buy a burger, fries, and a drink, and it's all done by a machine and everything is handed out to you by some machine? In the general, service industry is not going to be as welcoming to a robot, whether a manufacturer will be far more accepting, and actually robots are a part of the manufacturing process, depending on what organization you go to, whether it be IBM, manufacturing big mainframes, or going to GM, General Motors, and looking at them manufacture a vehicle and putting together the engine. So labor using human hands is not so, it's acceptable in the manufacturer, but there is a high possibility, given the nature and the complexity of the product being produced, that you may very well see robotics, and you may very well see a lot of machinery doing the work that humans used to do years and years ago. And it's not so true in the service industry. Measurement of productivity. Because service industry does not necessarily provide something that you can see or taste or touch. I mean, in general, you might see a piece of paper if you're talking about attorneys. You might see a financial statement if you're talking about an accountant. But generally speaking, the work that they're doing is not going to be intangible in nature. So measuring the productivity is real hard when you're talking about a service industry, and highly subjective, which is very different in the manufacturing, because if you manufacture a car, the the measurement of whether or not that product is good is, does it work? Is it function as intended? That sort of thing. So they're using Subway as an example. Subway, again, provides the inputs, and their components include the bread and all the other things that goes on their sandwiches. And then when they're done, you'll have a nice, beautiful, hopefully healthy submarine, whether it be a 12-inch or a 6-inch. But the bottom line is, we're measuring what goes in and what it looks like when it goes out. Planning and designing operation systems. You're going to have to deal with a couple questions, and, well, actually 4 real questions. Who are your customers? Where will you make the product? What will you produce? And the process involved. So the planning part of it is going to deal with marketing, and you're going to determine what product and features our customers want. And when it comes to iPhones, remember back when we were talking about phones and all of those wonderful things, people have made it clear through their buying decisions that they wanted something that was an all-inclusive type of phone. And here we are, maybe 15 years later, dealing with an iPhone that is like a computer in the palm of your hand. It does major computing capabilities, extremely sophisticated, but lighter than 2 pounds. And it does things in the ways and with the level of accuracy in terms of the visual and the data and all of that, that a mainframe computer or a desktop computer or even a laptop computer can do. So we're talking about doing those type of research, finding out the features that customers want, and then try to gauge the demand and determine what price is sufficient. Now, when we have that product, we need to plan how we're going to produce it. There's going to be a lot of input in that process. How do we produce this product? What kind of components that are needed to create this? In this case, an iPhone. And then we're going to have to figure out how much it's going to cost. How much money do we have to spend? And in the beginning, when products first come out, like the iPhone, I'm sure the price of manufacturing that device was extremely expensive. But as time went on, and as customers made more buying decisions based on the iPhone, they were able to find ways to make it more efficiently, more cost effective, and hopefully make the price of that iPhone much more affordable for more people. And that's all about making changes and evolving, which is very critical in business. Designing the operational process. Now, products are manufactured using 3 processes, and we're going to talk about them in general. The most important thing about this section, and particularly in this chapter, is getting an overview and an understanding of the process, not really digging too deep, because these sections really are courses all to themselves. And there's no way for you to get all that data and information in your head in one chapter. But the hope is that as you read the chapter, you can draw some parallels in your own work, but also get an idea and appreciation of operations management. So standardization is making an identical, interchangeable product or component. An example would be, I would say, a chip that you would use in a phone that will allow it to maintain compute data. And make it so that you and I can see it and understand it. So for an iPhone manufacturer like Apple, they don't design every component that goes into their phone. It's impossible. What they do, however, is work with organizations that create those parts. Some of the parts they may very well create within their or manufacture within their operations, but not every single piece, every single widget, every single little part that goes into an iPhone is actually designed by Apple. So Apple will be working with another organization, and they will have a standardized process. Why? Because they are making an identical product over and over and over again. So standardization is going to be making identical interchangeable components or products. And one example is a little small chip that will go inside an iPhone, is an example. Modular design is a creation of an item in self-contained units or modules that can be combined or interchanged to different products. Can you think of any? In your work or in your experience, can you think of something that would probably be manufactured within the process of modular design? And what about customization? Making products to meet a particular customer's wants or needs. That I think Dell Computer is a good example of that. They provide computers, laptops, desktops, mainframes, and also I would say probably networks. But nevertheless, those networks or computers that they design are very specific to each customer. That has set them apart from many organizations where there would be a standardization of their product, and the same computer is going to go out in the same way it's designed and no deviations whatsoever. Where with the Dell computers, that's not true. Dell computers are most certainly prepared based on the specification of each individual customer. So your computer may very well look the same on the outside, but how it operates and the capabilities of that particular computer will vary significantly from another customer, simply because they create their computers and all of their other information technology products based on the specifics of a customer. Planning capacity. This is going to be the maximum load that an organization or unit can carry or operate. And I think operations managers are going to need to know what that is. And again, specifically, if you're talking about manufacturing computers or iPhones, they're going to already know based on what operational capacity they can reach. And if you're talking maybe one facility that's going to be actually manufacturing these iPhones, they're going to be very much aware of how much they can produce in one day, how much they can produce in 1 week, just based on the manufacturing process that they already have established using the computers, using the workforce, and using the demand information of how many particular products that they all need to order or to produce to meet the needs of their customers. So that unit of measurement could be the number of workers per machine, a department, a branch, or capacity could be the entire plant. It could be stated in terms of units or outputs. But the main thing is they are very much aware of how much they can produce and how much information that they can get out, how much input they will need, the maximum amount of output they're going to get based on that. So they'll have a good idea when their capacity is too low, or they'll have a better idea if they are not planning sufficiently well and the demand is too high. It would result in high costs or lower costs. So they're going to be really looking at capacity, because capacity is going to be, if you can only generate 50,000 of these iPhones in a year, if you are actually receiving orders of 40,000, your capacity might be too high. So you might be producing too much, and it might be costly for you. Planning the facility location, that's a very big deal, because it depends on what the work is being produced and what's going to the customers. But if you're going to produce something and you need to make certain that these items get to your customer, you need to make certain that you know where your customers live, and you know how to plan to have a facility right where they are, because one of the things that makes facility location important is that it will create an efficient way of getting the products out of your hands and into the consumer hands in the most efficient and cost-effective way, which is why a facility location is important. However, facility location is not necessarily important, critical if you're talking about building cars, because we have maybe, I guess, 3 or 4 locations within the United States where they actually are plants, or I wouldn't call it a plant, but they have actually buildings where they produce vehicles. Now, the concern would be then when they manufacture these vehicles, how do we get the vehicles to the locations where the cars will be actually sold to a customer? And those kinds of things are also important as well. So although vehicles are not sold directly from the manufacturer, The facility location is going to be important for a number of reasons, politically, for reasons of getting in the state that will have the resources that they need to create these, to manufacture these vehicles, making certain the taxes are sufficiently low that they can afford, where it will not be too costly to put this facility in a particular state or community. They have to make certain that the community is accepting of them. They have to make certain that they have the workforce in that community. I mean, one thing that I think facilities have to consider is the community. How many people are in that community? How many people that they can hire? Because what happens when they build this plant to manufacture a car or whatever, the main thing they want to do is hire employees and find employees within that area. I think it's best. It's good business. It does helps the economy in that locality, and so everybody wants that most of the time. So when they're planning a facility location, they have to make certain that the people of that community are accepting of that plant, and they have to also consider whether or not the workforce is sufficient in that location. The layout, again, you having a layout of it, just letting you know how much space do you need, and is it a position where you have to grow and you need more space to create your product. So companies really have to think about that, and that's something that they'll need the experts, and they'll probably need construction, because they'll need to see how large this particular plant needs to be in order to produce in a most efficient way. Process layout is also is a layout that organizes the transformation process into departments that group related processes. So what this is saying is, this is more detail. It's just once you figure out where you're going to go, what you also have to consider is how you're going to lay out that facility such that the process can flow from one place or one department to another, and the processes can be grouped and organized. Intermittent organizations, these deal with products of lesser magnitude and products that are not unique but possess a significant number of differences. And again, if you're talking about an organization that doesn't produce cars of the same type, or they produce a lot of different things. For example, if you have a manufacturer of clothing line, they may produce clothes in one area and they might produce shoes in another area. So what we're talking about is having a layout that considers those things. Product layout will be broken down into simple tasks where each worker can be positioned along an assembly line. This is very similar to automobiles and manufacturing those. Some people may very well be in the area of building the engine, and some others may be in building the different parts of the vehicle, maybe the siding or the bumpers, and then others may be involved in manufacturing the actual transmission. So this is just laying out so that each task is broken down and positioned in such a way and laid out in such a way that the process of building that car is done in such a way that each set, once it's done, it goes to a different process, which finishes its job. It goes to a different process and then goes to another process. So in the case of Apple, this is talking about an end product. So once Apple has already manufactured their products, they have to ship those products to various stores. And when you walk into a store, you think about it, you say, well, usually you don't have a whole lot of thought process into why a store, particularly a store for Apple, is designed in the way it is. But a lot of thought goes into that. A lot of thought goes into where to place those products, how to make those products look, the colors, the space that it uses, and even the building that they are housed in. All of these things are important, because what they want to do is, in this case, they want to lay out the store in such a way that customers can go in and play around with the computers or the phones before they buy. Planning facility technology. And again, the complexity of this really depends on the organization, but computer-assisted design and computer-assisted manufacturing. And again, computers are going to be a very big part of what we do. And the way we use the computers may very well be because we're actually computing and using it for maybe creating some kind of document. But when you're talking about in a facility and actually producing a product, it gets to be a little bit more complicated than that. And using computers is going to be extremely important, and how they're used is going to really transform how quickly an organization can get products in the hands of their consumers. Flexible manufacturing. This is the direction of machinery by computers to adapt to different versions of similar operations. And again, if you have one particular machine that you're using to manufacture a product, you can alter it somewhat so that you can use it for creating or manufacturing a different product that's similar, that may have the same process steps, but actually is building a different item. Our computer integrated is going to be a system that designs the products and manages machines and materials and controls the operations function. This is an extremely complex process, and again, depending on the organization and their need, they could use any of these different types of technologies. Sustainability in manufacturing. Why is it important that we're dealing with sustainability? What does the sustainability mean to you? We've been hearing green all the time, and the first thought that goes through my mind is going to be more about how can we create something and not damage something in the process. That's my very, very layman's way of describing it. And that's important because we want to make things, we want to produce, but we want to also remember how is this going to affect the future of children and people that come after us. So when we're designing our operation systems, we're going to always look for ways to design in a more efficient way. We're going to always try to figure out ways to recycle our products so that we can ensure that we're not hurting the environment when we're trying to produce our product. Managing the supply chain. And this particular chapter is very, very long, but I want you to understand how important it is because this is going to affect you in some way, even as a consumer. But managing the supply chain is important because we want to get everybody in the process that's involved so that we can make certain that there's no disruption, because when there's a disruption in the supply chain, what happens? The cost overruns. The product takes longer to get produced. The products may very well be more costly if you buy it from a different vendor. So we want to make sure that we have all the products that we need. We want to make certain that our products and our inventory are in place that when we need it, so that when we're ready to manufacture, we can produce these products in the most quickly and efficient way possible. Our raw materials, components, and inventory, whether it's completed or not, is our inventory, and it's money to us. But it's not going to help make money for us until we produce it into an actual sellable item. So we want to control our inventory. We want to have sufficient inventory to keep track of what we're doing and track of what we need, but we don't want to have too much. So we want to make sure that we use our inventory in such a way that it is usable, that it is manufacturing in the most efficient way, but also we want to get the inventory complete so that it can go out the door and make money, because we can't get our money back on our inventory until we sell our product. So it's important to manage inventory correctly. It's important that we have the materials. It's important that we get this information out and to our customers as quickly as possible. Now, this is going to be the economic order quantity, is how can we minimize the number of items that we need in stock and still maintain the level of inventory that's needed to actually get a sale. So we're going to be using material requirements planning to schedule how we need, when we need, and the quantity of what we need. We need to be very, very precise because we don't want to have too much inventory, because the inventory that's not used is not generating income. And if it's not generating income, it's costing money. So we want to get those schedules and precise quantities needed to make a product, and we want to get them in, use them, and get them out. A technique called just-in-time inventory management is very important, because what happened with that is you order the materials, the raw materials that you need to produce the amount of product that you have current sales orders for. You don't have excess inventory. And as I mentioned before, unless the inventory is actually producing a product and being submitted or shipped to a A customer is costing money for an organization, so you don't want to hold on to inventory when you don't need to. So managing the supply chain in the global market is the same way. Using outsourcing and contracting allows organizations to be extremely efficient and keep their costs low. Because what we want is to keep the costs low when we actually sell the product to our customer. So we want to make certain the sequence of operations is which we must pass. We want to make sure our process is very specific and done in an efficient manner. We don't want anything slowed down. We want to make sure that we are scheduling the work and we have sufficient workers to make certain the work gets done on time, because when we delay, again, it costs money. Again, we want to make certain that we have the vendors that are needed to get the work done and to do the work. And at the end, what we want to do is make certain that we have all of the products and services and the inventory parts that we need to get it done on time. So organizations use PERT as a way to manage the path or the chain or the flow of processes. This makes certain that every stage of their process is being accounted for. And here's an example of how this diagram shows how it goes from being in one place and then down into another place where it goes to the customer. And all we want to do is make sure that we manage that process. And it's extremely important. It's not extremely complicated. It's just more important that we understand the process, ensure that the process it goes without a delay, and that we get it done so that at the end we end up getting a service to our customer, which will then lead to us to get our income. So Taco Bell is one of the organizations that we're highlighting in this chapter. And if you notice, over the years, we have talked about different types of organizations, how they evolve. One of the things about the retail business, in particular the restaurant business, is the drive-through operations. Very, very important to watch it. If you were to go to the store and go to McDonald's or Wendy's or some other store, watch how they operate through the drive-in. And if you would go to a Chipotle, and if you watch how they go through that process, it would give you a very good idea how the assembly line process works if you were in a mechanized organization. Very organized. Every person has their own process. Every person has their own function, and it just follows a stream until the end product is a fully loaded product that's delivered to a customer. Managing quality is critical. Organizations will invest significant amount of money to ensure that the products that they are to deliver to a customer are free of defect. And this is important even in industries where you're providing food. We want to make sure the food is quality food, of quality meat, of quality vegetables, and etc. That the food is not cold when it should be warm, and it's not warm when it should be cold. These kinds of things reflect the quality, and we want to make certain that the quality is of high levels. Therefore, it is important to ensure that there is a process in an organization that maintains controls and standards. This is what we call quality when you're actually preparing a burger. This is quality when you are preparing a soft drink. This is quality when you are serving a customer, if you're talking in Chipotle case. And what they want is quality is important, and it is extremely important that organizations have that process control in place and that they can manage it, because they are needed to make sure that they can deliver the best product. Because if they don't, guess what? Some other company will outbeat them. And you're talking about retail marketing and retail and restaurants, it's important that quality is number one. Customer service is number one, and that process needs to be a major part of how they do their work. Total quality management is going to be a firm commitment to total quality. It has a very sophisticated system in place, and organizations of larger size usually use that because they want to make certain that the product that they deliver, like an iPhone, like medical device equipment, like food services, like clothing line, that those products are manufactured in such a way that they meet high level of standards, and they are compared with other organizations. So they are always assessing their quality and doing everything possible to raise the bar to make their quality even higher and more efficient. And these are other international organizations for standards. These organizations really look at product quality based on an international standard, not so much based on United States standards, but under certain conditions, how do you ensure consistent product quality no matter what's going on? And again, we manage quality when we inspect, we sample. Again, we just want to make certain that the quality of our products, whether it be food or product, that it is high level, that it is the best that we can do. It is the best, and the expectations of our customers have been met, and in fact, in more ways, exceeded on their expectations. So when we are talking about operations and management, we're talking about, again, ensuring that our process is uniform, our process is efficient, and we're also talking about how can we be efficient in dealing and managing the flow of our supplies. How are we getting what we need? Are we getting the supplies in an orderly fashion? Are we providing the organization with the most efficient process? How are we doing what we do? Are we doing it in the most efficient way? Are we adding too many steps? Are we not doing it fast enough? Are we meeting deadlines? Those types of things are discussed. This chapter is a very good one, and when you look at this chapter, understand that operations management is a course all to itself with a lot of complexities in it. So what I'm asking of you to do is just an overview and understand from a different viewpoint. When you're going to different stores and you're utilizing their services and you're buying their products, think about the process that is going on behind the scenes. Think about what happens before the burger hits your plate, before the dress is on the shelf, before the iPhone is made available at the store. Think about those types of things as you're talking about operations and supply chain management. And there's a couple questions that we can talk about in our discussion. Is one, what industry would the fixed position layout be most efficient, or the process layout, or the product layout? Try to find some examples, and if there's anything in your personal experience that you can add to that. If you can understand the role of supply chain management, give a definition, and they summarize the activities that it involves. That will give you a very good overview of what this chapter is all about, and help you understand its role in your life. And as always, I thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you the next time.